trillions of cash sitting on the sidelines. Are you claiming Social Security too soon? And the missing puzzle piece for fearful retirees. All that and more on today's episode of Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts are Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them right here in Seattle, Elevated Financial Management. Again, the power behind this program. Between the two, over 42 years experience combined in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure to go back and forth with the gentleman, always about retirement. And we get into some interesting topics on this show, and it's always about planning. It's always about retirement. And the articles that we are going to hit today, I'm excited. Trillions in cash still sitting on the sidelines. And this comes from Fink, and that is Larry Fink, BlackRock's CEO. And when Larry talks, guess what? People listen. Gentlemen, welcome in. Before we dive into the article, though, let's find out how your week was.
Oh, it's been good. Yeah, it's been good. We've had a great week.
No, we haven't. The Mariners.
No. If one of us is going to be negative, you know who it's going to be. The Mariners haven't been doing quite as well, but one of us is still supporting the team. I won't mention any names. Okay. Mark, who's not. But no, things are going good. We've done a lot of nice things around the office here. We've got, as we've mentioned a couple times, we've got some new folks, but we've got some even more new folks in the studio today. We've got Phil. He's taken over as our marketing director, which is really nice. We're very excited to get that off of our plates and have somebody that can really lead the charge for us on that. So no, things have been good. Yeah, we're doing great, Morgan. Yeah.
So basically, Phil's responsibility is to put lipstick on the pig over there. Is that what's going on? Is that what's going on?
Did you just call me a pig or Mark?
No. I just meant the apparatus. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly
Mark,
right.
How was your week?
It was good. I want to just echo kind of what Casey's saying. We've been super busy, and I just want to start off by saying I just want to thank all the listeners that are tuned in today, because we appreciate the time if you're driving, listening to us, because we hope we bring some value to this is, a subject that can cause a lot of anxiety. Some are getting really stressed out about not knowing what to do. And so I just want to thank the listeners, and I want to thank our clients that listen on a regular basis too, because we truly do love what we do here. And I hope today's show, we're going to share some things that I think everybody's really going to enjoy.
Well, you brought up an interesting point. You've been super busy, but I want to dive in and kind of define that. People that do not have a plan, people that are out there in the ether, so to speak, they're worried. But your clients with plans, the phone rings occasionally, but it's not like it's ringing off the hook with your current client list. It's the new client or the potential new client that really needs direction.
Yeah, that's it. You're exactly right, Morgan. And it's for us, it's really rewarding, the impact that we get to have in people's lives, and to help help them get rid of the fears, really, right? Whether it be just the fear of running out of money, which we're going to talk about today. That's always at the top of the mind for retirees, and it's something that it seems like every questionnaire or study that's done or poll that's taken, that is the number one thing that people are worried about in retirement, right? And then when you talk about tariffs and inflation and economical issues in the U.S. across the world, that just amplifies that concern, right? That all of that really, those are all their own little concerns, but they all drive back to the same topic of being concerned of running out of money, right? How does this affect my retirement? That's really the question. And for most of the folks that we work with, as you mentioned, Morgan, right, our phone is not ringing off the hook because of the recent market volatility. A few calls here and there, but really the type of planning that we do is exactly that. It's a true plan. It's not just investment management, and I think that's really the thing, right? If you're hearing what's going on in the world and you're feeling these high levels of anxiety and you're concerned about your investments and things like that, we understand, right? That's we're not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that really might be a symptom of a much deeper issue, which is that you don't actually have a plan. Because if you had a plan, you would know that you were going to be okay despite what's going on, right? And that's really the key.
Yeah,
Well,
I just wanted to, this uncertainty, we don't know what's going to happen with taxes. Everybody's stressing about that a little bit right now. There's a lot of uncertainty following that. We don't know if Trump's plan is going to totally sunset here at the end of the year. In fact, we know there's several proposals out there right now. We enjoy having a CPA in our office, so we're talking about taxes all the time. And so this is something that, again, clients just want to, we want to hold their hands a little bit, right? We want them to know that there's somebody that does care, that is watching this stuff, because that's a game changer for a lot of people. And I think that's something that true planning, as Casey just mentioned, brings to the table here. It's about so much more than just the money part, right? There's so much emotion that gets involved here, and we really spend time with our clients talking about what I call where the rubber meets the road, what the emotional things that a lot of big box stores just don't want to address, or a robo-advisor just can't deal with or talk about.
I just want to go on record just so that we all know Mark wants to hold your hand. That's what he just said. Mark wants to hold your hand. What's that old Beatles song, right? Isn't there a Beatles song that's got
I want to hold your hand?
Yeah, there you go. Want to hold your hand. That's Mark.
Right.
That's his theme song.
Hey, man. I mean, look. I mean, we're kidding around, but I mean, it's very, very true. This is about a relationship, a partnership. Not just that first meeting, get a plan together, see ya. No, this is a relationship where you move with them to and through retirement. It is, we say it all the time. Retirement doesn't happen in a vacuum. I mean, there are so many things that are going to impact you, and your plan has to be flexible. You have to be flexible when it comes to retirement, and work with true fiduciaries. And again, get it mapped out. So one of the really cool things about this show is, we talk retirement, but we also give you an opportunity to take action on your own behalf. And that means a complimentary appointment with Elevated Financial Management. We're going to tell you about these appointments as we move through the show, but there's no cost or obligation, and you can get a better idea of how you're doing with your retirement or lack thereof retirement plan, and maybe get moving on it. So listen up for those appointments. Now, the other cool thing about this show is you kind of get a window into the mind of financial guys that do this on a daily basis, because we bring you articles that have caught the attention of both Casey and Mark and their team. And this first one is Trillions in Cash Still Sitting on the Sidelines. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, when he talks, people really do sit up and take notice. So, Casey, I'll just start with you. This jumped out at you, and why do you think so much cash is sitting on the sidelines?
It's just uncertainty, right? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. People are concerned, and we understand why, all right? We get it. It is uncertain times. It is unprecedented times, as much as I hate hearing that word anymore, right? But it really is the case, and we have things happening right now that have not happened in the past, and nonetheless, we have 3 or 4 or 5 things happening right now that have not happened in the past, nonetheless, all together. And so it is a period of uncertainty, and we get that. And so folks are concerned. So what do you do, right? You move to cash. And, I think, again, this is really why this sticks out to us, Morgan, is simply that it's highlighting, again, it's a symptom of an underlying issue, right? If you're moving everything to cash, if that's part of the plan, then that can be okay, right? It's not necessarily there's anything wrong with that. And we're not saying just sit in the market and watch your accounts lose all their value. That's not the point that we're driving to. But what we are saying is that is the reason that you've moved to cash because you're so uncomfortable because you don't have a plan, right? Because all of your money is invested in a high risk way. All of your money is invested in such a way that when the market loses, you lose across every dollar that you have. If that's the case, that's really why this article brings attention, right? Because that's something that needs to be addressed inside of your plan for retirement.
Yeah, and there's a thought here that I really thought was powerful. He makes a statement, let's be clear, the U.S. deficits are an issue, right? And we know with, $36 trillion, that's not going to go away. And it makes us kind of a really important thought here that the U.S. economy's got to grow by at least 3% to be able to deal with that kind of deficit. And so what happens the next, several years and months, if we want to cut that down, is important. So, and we know there's still trade wars going on right now, causing all this uncertainty, like Casey mentioned. And these things are an issue, and I hope everybody that's listening, if you're stressing out about this a little bit, we totally get it. We understand. But a plan is going to help put your mind at ease. So, that's what I would say about this. Pick up the phone and give us a call. This was mentioned earlier. We want you to keep your checkbook at home. All we're going to do is have a conversation. That is it. And let our team help you think about where you're at tax-wise, what's going to happen there. Do you have a plan for that? What about, is your income guaranteed? Where's that going to come from? What about Medicare? You got to make a decision whether I go on a Med Sup or a Med Advantage plan. And then, of course, maybe some estate planning where you're having to decide where you want your assets to go when something happens and both you and the wife or you as a single person pass away. So all of these things, friends, are important. So pick up the phone, give us a call, let us help.
We have appointments available. They are complimentary during uncertain times. Get the confidence you are looking for by having a plan. And again, you can kick the tires with Elevated Financial Management right now by calling 866-668-3625. If you haven't started planning, you're just sitting on the portfolio, or you need that second opinion on what you're currently doing, give the number a call. Grab one of these appointments. Again, no cost, 866-668-3625. We've got more Elevated Financial Management powers of Elevate Your Wealth. That's coming up next, and we'll get into more articles, including Schwab CEO says investors cutting risk after turmoil. That's coming up next. We are back on Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. They've got 42 plus years combined experience in the retirement planning business. They're certified financial fiduciaries, and you can find them right here in Seattle, Elevated Financial Management. Check out the website. It's a great resource for you, efmnw.com. Those are all letters, efmnw.com. TV show links, radio shows in podcast form. Great information when it comes to retirement planning. Plus, you can find out more about Casey and Mark and the team. And again, it's always about getting you ready for retirement. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure to go back and forth on the retirement topics. And this show, we dive into the latest. And we are going to now go into even wealthy individuals may claim Social Security too soon. So this is a claiming strategy conversation about Social Security. There are a lot of you listeners out there that are saying, you know what, when I get to this age, I'm taking it. You really need to think about that, need to work on it, need to plan for it. It needs to fit into your overall plan, gentlemen.
Yeah, in fact, it's interesting. We're talking about this because we had this come up with a client yesterday that was dead set on starting at 62. Mm-hmm. And I love this article because it makes the point that even if you're out there and you've got you're a high net worth individual, maybe got several $1 million, so you're thinking, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do it, turn it on at 62. Well, that may not be a good strategy. The problem is, and the biggest hurdle that Casey and I face with clients is we don't know when every client or each client's going to pass away, right? That's always the big hurdle. Longevity risk does matter, and it matters even to wealthy individuals. So when we decide to go can have a impact one way or the other. Now, we've also run enough numbers to know that if we do wait till 70, we've got to realistically live till age 82 if it's going to pay off for us. It's about a 12-year crossover point. We know that could be 11 and a half, but if we just use 12 years, that's going to be a pretty safe number. But if you live, into your, mid-80s, into your 90s, waiting is going to be a massive victory for you. And that's what we want, really, our clients and everyone listening to understand. Everybody's situation is so unique to them, but just because you have money, you shouldn't necessarily think, well, I'm just going to turn it on. Part of the reason that we believe everybody that wants to do that at 62 is all the noise out there about Social Security, right? And it's going to go away. Or, we believe there are adjustments coming, but it going away, I don't believe that for 30 seconds. And so Just don't listen to all the water cooler talk sometimes and make a decision that could really backfire on you financially if you don't really talk with someone that might be able to walk you back a little bit so that you can really know some of the true facts that are out there and not make an emotional decision that could be wrong.
Yeah,
Mark,
I think. Go ahead, Morgan. You go. You go.
No, I was just going to jump in and say, Mark, I think you bring up an excellent point. Everybody's different, and your scenario. We say this all the time. Retirement is going to come at you. Things are going to impact you. It'll be different from anybody else. So your plan needs to be unique. It needs to be customized. Same thing goes for your strategy for Social Security. There may be people out there that can wait, but there also may be a group that can't. And so. How does it fit into the overall plan? Go ahead, Case.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? I mean, I think we were going down the same path, Morgan. I appreciate what you said. Where for some people it is right to take it early. For some people it's right to take it at full retirement age. For some people it's right to wait until 70. We don't know until we get into the overall plan because a lot of those determinations or that determination of when to start Social Security is founded on other assets and other income that you have. If you have no other income and you really don't have many other assets, well, then you're just going to have to go ahead and start it as soon as you retire, right? I mean, that's it. Maybe even before you retire, kind of depending on circumstance. But collectively, there's not a lot of choices in that. Now, that's not the circumstance for the folks that we work with, right? There's other assets involved. And so it all becomes, if you've got different tools in the tool belt, using the right tool in the right application, or, if you're playing cards, right? If you've got a different hand to play, you play it to the best possible way. And the hand that you were dealt is different than the hand that anybody else was dealt, right? And so you've got to figure out how to play those cards most effectively. And that's really what we're talking about here, is playing this effectively, not emotionally. And that's really what it boils down to, is many people are playing these types of financial decisions with emotion and not with logic. And so this is where it's important to understand the separation. We are not trying to take emotion out of finance or out of retirement. That's not the key. But we are trying to take overly emotional decisions out of finance, right? That decision should be founded on what's the most effective thing for you. So there's a quote from the article that I'll share. It says, if you need Social Security benefits early because of your health or your finances, go ahead and claim it. We're in full agreement with that, because if that's the circumstance, if you need to take it early, take it early. But here's the caveat. If you're claiming early out of fear, I don't think that's such a good idea. And that's why this article stuck out, is because it really shares a similar sentiment to what we believe and what we bring to the table. Is it has to be part of an overall larger picture, a larger plan, to understand how everything works together, instead of compartmentalizing all of these financial decisions. And that's what we see people do, is they compartmentalize their Social Security timing, they compartmentalize their 401k, they compartmentalize Medicare, they compartmentalize long-term care. All of those things affect each other, and the plan has to encompass all of that.
I'd like to add just one quick thought here, because this comes from a senior advisor with the AARP Public Policy Institute. So they study this stuff. They're trying to help everyone that's facing this thing make decisions that, is going to benefit them. But he makes this point. He says the Social Security claiming timing is amongst the most important household decisions that older Americans will have to make. I want to say that again. It's going to be one of the most important decisions that you're going to make when it comes to your retirement. So this really is one. Now, we can't 100% get this right. We all know that because of longevity, right, and not knowing when we're going to pass away. But as Casey mentioned, if you make an emotional decision on this, it could backfire and it not be a good deal for you. So please, if you're listening, think about that, because it matters when you claim.
We are hitting on, again, Social Security, when to claim it. It's going to be different for everybody out there, but even wealthy individuals may claim Social Security too soon. So look, it takes a plan. Casey, you said the phrase claim effectively, not emotionally. I think that's the theme for this segment. You need to have a plan. You need to be effective with your Social Security strategy. Don't get emotional, and also don't be the other way where it's like, well, I'm just going to take it to take it. I mean, there's no emotion involved. They're just hitting a number and they're taking. But, again, claim effectively. That's the theme.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the way to figure that out for our folks listening from home or out in their cars or whatever's going on, talking about Social Security claiming age, is if someone asked you why you want to take it early, maybe just have that internal conversation with yourself, right? If you say, well, I'm going to take it early, why is that? Ask yourself that question. Why do I want to take it early? And if your answer is, well, Social Security is going to be gone, that's a pretty strong statement, right? I mean, that really is something that I think would be. We've talked about this before. Any president or any political person would be hard pressed to get rid of Social Security. It may change, it may look different, but it's not going anywhere. And so, maybe think about that. Try to explain to yourself, or maybe how you would explain it to your friend about why you would take it early. And if you're struggling to come up with what seem to be solid reasons, it's probably an emotional decision that you're making. It's probably not founded on logic. It's probably not founded on an overall plan. And so, the point here is that your individual circumstance is unique to you. And when you claim Social Security is not necessarily the same time that everybody else should or shouldn't claim Social Security, right? You might have a friend that has a very similar circumstance to you. Maybe their spouse is the same age and you're retiring around the same time. But their assets are probably different. How they're invested is probably different. Do they have a pension? Do you have a pension, right? So these are all things that have to be considered when you're trying to make that decision. And it's something that really we can't take lightly. We've got to take the time to have a conversation. And so for those of you that are listening that want to have a deeper conversation about when to claim Social Security, that want to talk more about your investments, really that want to have a written plan for the future, this is your opportunity. Now is the chance. If you're willing to pick up the phone and give us a call, our wonderful staff will take the time. Mark and myself, one of our fiduciary advisors, will sit down and have a conversation with you to talk about where you're at and where you'd like to be. What is the right time to claim Social Security? How are your other investments going to affect your retirement? What can you do to protect yourself from the market volatility that's going on? How can you create income? What to do for Medicare? All those questions that are swirling around in your mind about retirement, those are all things that we'll address. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call now.
I mean, so many things to consider. Work with a fiduciary firm. Map this out. Get your interests right on the table up front and talk about what you want out of retirement. But, right now we're focusing in on Social Security and how it all fits in. You need a claiming strategy, but that depends on all your puzzle pieces. Get in here, grab an appointment. They're cost-free, 866-668-3625. That'll get you in touch with Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. This is a complimentary appointment, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. When we return, the missing puzzle piece for fearful retirees. You don't want to miss this article. We'll discuss when we come back. Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. Elevated Financial Management, where you can find them right here in Seattle. 42 plus years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for that retirement. They are certified financial fiduciaries. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure to go back and forth on so many different retirement topics that are important just to be aware of and know that it takes a plan to get you to and through retirement. So many of you are doing a fantastic job putting your money away into those retirement vehicles, but that's called a portfolio. That is not a plan. And there are just as many that are halfway through this planning process, but they're a little frustrated maybe. This is you. They can't get their appointments scheduled, or their appointments get moved around, their phone calls aren't being returned. You would be a prime A candidate for a second opinion. And here on the program, we have complimentary appointments. You can call at any time and grab one. 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. And again, no obligation, meaning you're not agreeing to become a client. And guess what? Mark and Casey and the team, they're not agreeing to take you as a client. This is a test drive. 866-668-3625. So before we dive into the missing puzzle piece for fearful retirees, Mark, you spotted something with Social Security and what it might mean for the wealthy and real estate.
Yeah, this is something I just wanted to share with our listeners because this even opened our eyes just a little bit about this. It brings out the fact that poor timing can really impact real estate wealth. And you might be wondering, well, how's that possible? Well, what was interesting about this is that if we claim early, it could end up impacting your cash flow. What do we mean by that? Well, if you don't have enough income coming in, to meet your obligations, even if you're wealthy, you could have a lot of things tied up in, as we're talking about here, real estate, right? And it's not liquid. So how are you going to supplement your sources of income? If you're fortunate enough to have a pension and Social Security, this might not be as big an issue, but a lot of people today that have a lot of wealth don't have pensions. So they're having to possibly adjust that income using real estate to do that. Maybe they're taking more of the income that possibly generating, maybe in the form of rents. And so this is something to really think about. I know it's opened my eyes, and I'm going to definitely be talking more at length with our clients that own real estate and how this could be affected by when they claim their Social Security. So I thought this was important to bring up because I know I've been doing this a long time, and this has never been brought up to me. I had never heard this about real estate being affected this much by when we claim Social Security. So I just thought it was a point that I wanted to bring out to our listeners today.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions, you can always grab one of our appointments. They are complimentary. Simply call this number, 866-668-3625. That'll get you in one of the calendar spots with Elevated Financial Management. We've carved out a handful of these appointments. Again, they have a very busy office, but we want to help. So if you got any questions about your retirement situation, which might be, you're sitting on a portfolio, no plan, or you need a second opinion on what you're currently doing, just call the number 866-668-3625, and they'll get you set up with that appointment. So have you ever put together a puzzle and you get down to the end and you're missing a piece? I mean, I like finishing stuff. Like I want to be complete, and if I'm missing a puzzle piece, it drives me absolutely nuts. So I think it's perfect that this is the article we're going to talk about: the missing puzzle piece for fearful retirees. Dive in, guys.
I figured out the next gift I'm going to give you, Morgan. I'm going to get you a puzzle.
A not complete puzzle.
I'm going to take one piece out before I give it to you. Yeah, so the missing puzzle piece for fearful retirees. This is what the article says, and this really caught our attention because we do get asked, and I'm gonna say sometimes what is considered a financially bad word. Mark, what is it?
Yeah, it's the A word,
the
annuity.
Word, right? The annuity. Sometimes that's a bad word, right? And so we get asked about them a lot. We do talk with clients about them a lot. And you know what? The truth is, Mark and I see a lot of value in annuities in the right application, right?
Sure.
That's really what it boils down to. And so I just want to preface maybe our this segment of our show today as we're talking about annuities for any listener. Really just pay attention and let those maybe preconceived notions about annuities fall away for a second, and let's just talk about them kind of objectively, right?
Now, can I add just one thing? If the FCC really considered annuity a bad word, we'd have to beep it out, and we haven't beeped it out yet.
There you go.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
yeah. Well, we might have to get one of those little beep buttons and figure that out, right? But it's something where I think that the annuity serves a very specific purpose, and sometimes it's probably more fear of the unknown than anything, right?
Yeah.
And so let's just talk about it. We'll talk about some of the benefits of it, how they work, and it might be something valuable for our listeners. So let's start with this because the article makes a very important statement. It says it's a common fear. An Allianz study found about 2/3 of retirees, and here's the quote, dread running out of money more than death. So they are more concerned that their money is not going to last longer than they are, right? And so, of course, nobody wants to be a burden on their family or have to be dependent on others. And so, that's a very deeply personal concern, obviously. But the reality is that's it's the main concern for retirees is running out of money. And that is where the annuity starts to come in to make sense. In the right application, using the right type of annuity, because there's details that have to be selected there when you're considering an annuity, is that at its very basis, it can protect you from the risk of the market,
Sure.
and it can create guaranteed lifetime income, like a private pension, right? So this is really something that can be a super valuable tool. And the reality is that that's what most people are looking for in retirement, is actually guaranteed income. That's what you really want, right? That's what you had when you were working. As long as you went to work, you got your paycheck, and you really want the same thing to continue in retirement.
So, guys, do you think the fear is just the lack of knowledge on annuities, or the preconceived notion on annuities that they're one or two and they're not very good, when actually there are many types of annuities, some of them customizable, might be a good fit for a portfolio, but it's like they can't get past the initial fear, the perceived fear.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this study, which includes a big study done by BlackRock, the largest money manager in the world, and it was agreed upon universally that clients want guaranteed income. And what does that better than an annuity? Well, I'll tell you, those that are drawing Social Security and have a pension, they have annuities, right? And they may not want to admit that, but that's exactly what those are. And those are the foundations for a good plan. It's that income that matters. And I just love, because they ask the question to a whole bunch of retirees that just retired, and they ask them, would you like to have another Social Security check to give you more income? And you know what everyone said? 100% said absolutely. That's what they want. So again, this is something I think is really, really important, because people may, again, you bring up the A word, and there's so many negative things about that out there, whether you Google it or whatever. But it's interesting when you really study this stuff. Annuities can be one of the most powerful tools that an individual can set up if they want to guarantee their lifestyle and their income.
Yeah,
Mark,
that's really the case, is that creating the guaranteed income, right? And so there's a quote in the article that I want to bring out, or I just want to quote the article, I should say. So it's kind of a long one, but just stay with me. It says BlackRock measured a 22% increase in spending ability among retirees who had some form of guaranteed income. I really can't overstate that. A 22% increase in spending ability. When you think about your retirement, when you started saving for your retirement 40 years ago, when you first opened your 401k, ultimately you saved in your 401k with the intent of one day creating income. You didn't save that account to just grow it for the rest of your life. The idea was to grow it until you move into retirement, and then to create income. That's how that money becomes valuable to you. So really, the whole purpose of saving is to eventually create income, right? And so here's the key. A 22% increase in spending ability. That is a huge deal. And then here's the rest of it. It says annuities rise to the occasion here because, frankly, no other industry has a handle on the longevity space, which, again, is the number one concern, that we're going to run out of money before we run out of runway, right? Then it goes on to say you go to banks for banking and investment firms if you want your assets managed. But when you need to have conversations about morbidity and longevity, those are the specialties of the insurance sector. And that's what we're talking about. We are trying to make sure that your plan outlasts you, and your money has to outlast you for that to be effective. And that is the very specific purpose that annuities are made for, that they come into a plan, right? If you're looking to grow and build wealth for retirement, that's probably not the place that we're going to go. That's probably not the right move, right? That's what the stock market is for. And the stock market does an amazing job at creating growth if you have a long enough time frame retirement. But where it can start to struggle is creating income, and that's where the annuity starts to come in. So it's about the right tool, again, in the right application.
Well, and Mark, you've said this many times on the show before, and you referenced it earlier, just saying, the question was, would you like a second Social Security? Would you like one of those? Well, what is Social Security? What is a pension? It is an annuity.
Yep.
So, you really need to kind of take your blinders off, investigate, and obviously work with fiduciaries and have it explained to you. Ask questions and get those answers, and then make your decision. So we've got appointments available with Elevated Financial Management. I believe, Mark, you're up. So what's going to happen when they call?
Yeah, so if you're listening right now, please pick up the phone. Maybe you're getting ready to retire from Boeing or have recently retired. Please give us a call. Maybe we've just talked about annuities a little bit, and you've got questions about those. How can they fit in? What about your money that's in the market? Are you concerned about income? Is it guaranteed or not? What about the medical situation that you're going to have when you leave that company that's been providing benefits for you? Now you're going to go on Social Security and Medicare. Right? All of these things are going to create a lot of questions. So please, all we want to do is have a conversation. Pick up the phone, give us a call, let us help. Again, call us and we'll have a conversation. That's it. And you'll keep your checkbook at home.
Complimentary appointment awaits. 866-668-3625. Call now. These spots will not last. 866-668-3625. No obligation, meaning you're not agreeing to become a client. This is a test drive. 866-668-3625 will get you in touch with Elevated Financial Management. We've got more Elevate Your Wealth. When we return, we've got scenarios. Elevate Your Wealth. Yes, we are back. Mark Stimpson and Casey Elkins. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. 42 plus years combined experience in the retirement planning. And again, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. Website, yes, great resource. Check it out, efmnw.com. That's all letters. efmnw.com. Again, links to the TV show, radio show in podcast form. Great information there. Check it out, efmnw.com. I'm Morgan Patrick. My pleasure each and every week to go back and forth. And when we get to the final segment, we normally do scenarios, and that's what we have today. So first up, gentlemen, this person's got $950,000 spread across the 401k, a brokerage account, and cash savings. And given what we're currently seeing, the market volatility, how should they plan systematic withdrawals to cover $5,000 a month without running out early or selling investments at a loss?
Yeah, this is a really good question. So they've got just shy of $1 million, and they're not sure how to get $5,000 a month out. What I would say to this is we would need some more information, right? But based on just this question, the problem is we know that, $60,000 a year, if we used easy math, $1 million, right, is a 6% drawdown rate. Mm-hmm. What we would say to that is probably way too high to not have to be worried about running out of money, right? I think there are many today that believe it used to be 4% in the last, 25, 30 years, that if you stayed to that 4% drawdown rate, you'd be okay. And now there are many that believe even if you push 3%, you're probably going to run out of money. So again, this is where guaranteed income streams can change this dramatically. And I hate to bring up that word again, but we talked about last segment, but annuities. This is where an annuity could really help to cover that payout that you need and have it be guaranteed to where you could never run out of money. So again, based on your situation, is going to help figure out what's the best way to do that. I don't know if you have a thought, Case.
I do, yeah. And you went exactly down the same path that I think I was going down about withdrawal rate, and 6% withdrawal rate. That's huge. That's massive, big, right? I mean, the reality is that in the 80s, you might have been able to take 6%, right? I mean, that was the overarching thought at the time, was you could take 6%. In the 90s, it was 5%. In the 2000s, it's 4%. Now it's debated as to whether or not you can even take 2.5% or 3%, right? So, and what we're really getting at with that statement is, if you have $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, whatever it is, the idea is that you can only take a certain percent each year. So if you can only take 2.5% and you're trying to take 6, I assume that you're, at the cusp of retirement, right? We don't really have an age in this scenario, but let's say you're 60 or 65 and we need to make this money last.
Right.
You can't take 6%. You just can't do it, right? I mean, you're not going to have a successful retirement in the future. You might have a lot of fun for the first few years, but that becomes pretty stressful later on when you watch your accounts dwindle, right? So, and of course, there's other scenarios to this, right? You may be able to take more out of your accounts if you have other sources of guaranteed income, because that means that in the future, even if you do run the accounts that you have to zero, you still have some level of income for the future, like a pension or Social Security or an annuity, like Mark mentioned, right? So, there's other pieces to this that come in. So it's not just a blanket statement that you can't do it, but I will say 6% withdrawal is massive. Whether you got 100,000, a million, or 100 million, that's a big number to take out every single year.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback that. Those that have listened to the show over the last several years know that we teach out at all the local community colleges in our area, Bellevue, Renton Tech, Highline, and Green River, and we do a class on this. We have a segment known as Sequence of Return Risk, and that is something that we share at every class and say, if you don't pay attention to anything during this class, take and pay attention to this, because if the market doesn't perform the way we want it to, and you start to draw that money down, you would be unbelievably surprised at how fast you can run out of money. And that's the thing that we just don't know, right? We don't know exactly what the market's going to do. That's why for the planning we do, guarantees matter. They always will, and they always, have. And so, again, there's a lot of things that we want to get straight here, but, risk and not knowing exactly what the market's going to do can cause a lot of anxiety and possibly have your money not last.
We are in the middle of scenarios, and these happen all over the country, and we are asking Mark and Casey to kind of go over what they might do. Just remember, you may have a scenario that's similar to one of these. It's not exactly what you're going through. We talk about it all the time. You need to have a customized plan put together that's going to take into account all the different things that are going to impact you as you make your way to and through retirement. All right, scenario number 2. Casey, you can start with this one. Here it is. They're considering selling a rental property that doubled in value since 2010, and they want to help fund their retirement with it. With capital gains taxes and state tax considerations, should they sell now, hold longer, or explore a 1031 exchange?
That's a really complicated question. It is, right? And you know what? The truth is there's a lot of people in our area that are in this type of circumstance because the real estate around here has grown so much that people are kind of in a weird spot where maybe I'm done being a landlord, right? I don't want to deal with tenants and toilets anymore. And we've seen a lot of that. We've had a lot of people come to us in the last couple years that have decided that they don't want to have rental properties anymore because it's too much work or it's just not creating the income that they want. And so they've moved out of those particular investments, out of those income-producing assets, and we've helped them transition into something different, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a second. But do you deal with the capital gains taxes and state tax, things like that, sell it now? That might be the right answer for a number of folks. It really could be. And you know what? I will tell you this. It sucks to have to pay those kinds of taxes, right? That is not fun. We get it. That is a big thing to chew off, not only from an actual financial perspective, but just emotionally. To agree to paying this massive number in taxes is hard. But if that ultimately puts you in a better position, well, then it's worth it, right? That's really what it boils down to. So that is one thing that may make sense. It could, if you don't actually mind managing it, or if you're open to using a third-party management company, and it's really not taking much work for you, it might make sense to just hang on to it. You might have good income from it that's relatively stable. And again, it depends on the rental property. We have a client that has, I think 5 or 6 kind of low income rental properties. And those are working really well for him. He's totally hands off, never is worried about the rent. I mean, those are working great. But we've had another client that came in. I think they listened to our radio show, or actually, no, they think they came to a workshop at one of the colleges. And they had a fourplex in Montlake Terrace. and the fourplex was doing okay. But actually, and here comes the word again, we're going to say annuity. They sold that, moved the money into an annuity, and they are now getting more than double the rent that they were getting, and they don't do a thing to get it. It just shows up in their account every single month. So they're not dealing with tenants, toilets, vacancies, repairs, anything.
Taxes.
They just have the income coming in. And so for them, that was the right move, right? It's not necessarily the right move for everybody, but it was for them. And then, again, here's the other option, the 1031 exchange. Maybe the rental property that you have has run its course and that's not the one you want to own anymore. But perhaps you could 1031 into a different, newer property that maybe doesn't need as much maintenance. It's maybe in a little more affluent area. So hopefully you're getting a higher quality of renter. And that makes your life easier. So, there really are different ways to go about it. And here's the thing. If you're just in love with real estate and you love the rental income and that kind of thing, just continue down that path, right? Because if that's something that you really enjoy and that's how you like to do things, then keep doing it, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you're looking at that rental property and you're thinking, man, I don't think that I want to be a landlord in retirement. I don't really think that was like the golden years of my life, that I was going to have to deal with renters while I'm supposed to be hanging out, having fun, doing whatever it is that I want to do. But instead I got to go fix a toilet or do something like that. Well, then maybe it is time to consider selling it, dealing with those taxes, and figuring out what you could do with those funds that would create income for you without you having to have the hassle.
You know what I will say to that? How many that were owners of property got massively hurt because of COVID? They never could have seen that coming. And in our area, the renters had more rights than the people that were having to still make, if they still had to make a mortgage payment, there was no mercy for them. So that really brought to the fore for a lot of our listeners possibly that, owning real estate, there can be a risk there. And we know that. So some love it and love those challenges, and others are just tired of it. I know I owned a fourplex for a long time. I got out of that for exactly what Casey said. I was tired of dealing with, and I had good renters, like he mentioned. I had Section 8 renters, so I got my money on time every month, but I just got tired of the other hassles that came along with that. And so that's why I decided real estate, investment real estate, wasn't what I was going to do.
Well, scenarios, we have been able to get through a couple of them. Just want to remind you that you've got your own scenario and you're probably thinking about it. Now's the opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. Bring that conversation to the fore and again, just talk it out. These are no cost, no obligation appointments. Casey, walk us through them.
As you just said, Morgan, they're no cost, they're no obligation. We like to say leave your checkbook at home. Let me just preface it this way. This is not an agreement for you to become a client. It's not an agreement for us to take you as a client. That is not the purpose here. We are focused on education, and I hope that you've been able to pick that up on our show. If you've come to one of our workshops at the colleges, it is all about education. And when you come in to see us, it will continue to be all about education. We will talk about the choices that you have, the circumstance that you're in, what taxes might look like for you, and really help to educate on the current investments that you have. We spend a tremendous amount of time talking through an analysis and where you're at, and then we start to figure out how we get to where you'd like to be. So if you want a written financial plan, now is your opportunity. Pick up the phone, give us a call.
Here's the phone number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Again, a complimentary appointment. There's no obligation. This is an opportunity to talk about your very own retirement scenario. And again, get busy on planning or possibly that second opinion. Call now, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevated Financial Management's Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. For Mark and Casey, I'm Morgan. We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.